Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 90. This is developers' journey to making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Coco Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Whew, all right.
Yeah, we're coming at you a little bit late today because we're recording this right after the Keynote and the State of the Union.
Oh, yeah, you spoiled it.
WWDC. Yeah, something. What happened? Should we do the takeover again?
Yes. So yes, WWDC just happened. We decided to delay our normal recording, so this is actually going to be late, or is late.
It's gonna be even less edited than usual.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hot mess because it's gonna be our hot spicy takes, and that are pretty fresh. Yeah. So Steve, what do you think of all the things that came out in WC?
Well, first of all, I'll say I think this was actually more eventful, more impactful of a WWDC than I was expecting, and then I think the rumor mill was churning out. I think there was a lot of negative sentiment around Apple lately, and around because of Apple Intelligence and the perceived failure of that rollout. And to a degree, there's some truth to that, because obviously not everything promised was delivered, but I always thought there was a little bit overemphasized because I don't think normal people care that some of the stuff came out. But what went beyond Apple went beyond what I thought they were going to do. They came in, they immediately lampshaded the whole Apple Intelligence thing, which I thought was very good. They immediately came out and basically were like, they did two things. They said, here's a list of all these tiny little features that we're going to put under the marketing umbrella of Apple Intelligence, and they're like, okay, we did all this stuff. And they kept trying to make that, but then they also were pretty jokey about their about stuff throughout the day. They had a little bit of a sense of humor. They came out and they did admit that like things were still getting worked on, and then they said, but we got like some awesome, amazing, quote unquote AI tooling for you today, essentially. So I think they kind of did just enough lampshading, and then they said, here's something brand new and shiny that everybody wanted anyway, and several times. So I think we all got distracted by the end. We don't care anymore is what I'm saying. I don't think anybody cares at the end of WWDC about the Apple Intelligence promises from last year, because we're all going to be so distracted for at least the next couple of weeks with the...
I never cared, so...
Well, sure. You and I didn't care a lot. Querying the people in my life who are not developers, zero of them cared. They didn't even know about it. People like my dad were like, I don't even like the changes that are on my phone now. Like, I don't want new stuff. I can't figure it out as it goes. Nobody cared. I think it was like an overblown narrative in the tech space to a large degree. But, I mean, I want a new updated dingus, I especially because we can't even say the word without it accidentally activating. So can we fix that after how many years? But I guess let's just get into some of the meat of this, because, or first with, I see this is a hot mess. My overall assessment to wrap it up, to let you guys talk, is I really enjoyed the Keynote and State of the Union. Thought it was very polished, was a little just lighthearted enough, I think, just cringy kind of enough to be the kind of delightful Apple presentation that we've all come to know and love, I think, where they don't quite take themselves fully seriously. And then they also, I think, revealed a lot of cool stuff, which we'll talk about a little bit soon. So what'd you think, Cultural?
Let's see. Well, I'll pass it to Aaron first, because I'm still trying to collect my thoughts. I know you had some thoughts about the opening sequence.
Yeah. Remind us what that opening sequence was, because my mind is just a blur.
It was... Yeah. The whole opening sequence was just a big ad for their new movie that's coming out,
right?
And I just loved the contrast between that and opening to Google I/O, which was just like a bunch of AI generated slop, and this like, no, we actually make movies, like real movies in movie theaters.
I didn't.
It's actually awesome.
I didn't put two to two together. Oh, that makes so much sense now.
I don't know if that was the intention, but that's what I thought, and I thought it was pretty
as
funny.
Usual, though, I will say the juxtaposition is stark. Like, Apple's presentations, despite improvements on the Google I/O side, are still leagues better than the presentations I ever see at I/O, especially like the stuff done with the leadership. And Yeah, that is funny when you look at it from that perspective. You're like, Apple was just like, oh, you guys, you made some AI slop. Okay, well, we have a major motion picture. Who knows if it's going to be any good?
We're number one in the highest quality movies.
It's true. I got to tell you, Apple TV Plus, whatever the hell we call that service, it is really putting out content that gets really good reviews. That's not a lot of it I care about, but but they have a variety of things that gets really good reviews, and I don't know why more people don't subscribe. It's actually very cheap.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like the first time. I know they always have like little snippets of like Apple TV Plus shows in the keynote, but this was I think it was like the first time where it was like the thing for the section on Apple or on tvOS. It was just like, here's an ad for all of the shows that are coming out.
That was like the lightest OS update ever seen.
Yeah.
Like majority of it was the ad.
You don't need anything about the OS. Just here's all the shows.
Well, they did. I mean, we're going all over the place. They did give some quality of life improvements to everything, but even Apple TV got like that profiles thing in there, profile support, the mechanism to help you log into things. Right, that was in there. New design language to make things shinier.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everything, but that was like the thing. It was like majority of it for the Apple TV part was just here liquid glass and profiles and an ad, and that's the whole thing.
So Aaron, back to it. Well, do you have any other thoughts and initial impressions of the two keynotes?
I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, just the on-device model stuff. I don't know if we're gonna want to get right into that.
We'll get into it after Kotro gives his impressions, I think.
I guess, I mean, I can speak to, I know like the obvious one was liquid glass as like the hot topic item, and I keep thinking, okay, this is interesting because it was a little beyond what originally I had thought, which was your tab bar was going to be like this sort of like floating tab bar, which it still technically is, but now they've separated it out so that your search button is this kind of attached to it, so whatever you have as a searchable maybe is why it comes up, and then the context of it changes, so it's kind of like an overlaying UI of your entire app experience. Is kind of like how they're trying to say these sort of liquid buttons or liquid UIs are supposed to act, and that's kind of an interesting design metaphor because it's a very opinionated metaphor, and I think part of the reason why it's even built that way, because if you have to check out the Meet Liquid Glass WWDC video, because that really goes into detail of like how complex these like layered shading effects are happening just to create that one button experience. It's kind of gnarly, and it's also kind of like, I think it's almost like a defense in some ways to like Material. I forgot what it was, like Material Express or whatever that new Material version is. Just as more of like a flex of like, try to replicate this.
Again, it's just like, this was like everything old is new again. We were saying that while we were watching it, and that reminded me again of iOS 7. When they came out with iOS 7, they said, look at all this transparency glass effects we can do that you can't do on Android, because at the time the GPUs were terrible, and like they had all those kinds of rendering problems.
All right, there was the nice shout out to those other frameworks that you can make Android apps also, and they'll never be as good. That was like a 5-minute rant.
That was my favorite. When Apple comes out
so
and they're
much
like,
shade.
Yeah, they have to throw shade. I love those moments when they throw shade. Remember, because sometimes they'll backtrack on it. Like, I remember when they threw shade at home tab buttons, and they're like, don't do a tab on your app that's just a home, and then they adopted it in their apps a couple years later. I don't think they're going to do it here, but that was this is them being like, hey man, you want all this stuff, you're going to have to use our native controls, our native
because I mean
frameworks.
Like I'm sure if you give a framework like Flutter enough time, they can replicate it just fine.
Yeah,
but to get that to work in tandem with Material, I'm really messing up this name. I know it's
called Material Design.
It's like Express,
whatever
the modern Material Design is, which is a completely different like design language. It's more flat and a little more expressive. It's definitely rounder, right? And then
everything's rounder.
iOS, which is like now like very glossy and glassy. It's like, okay, now I as the developer have to make a decision. It's like either I commit to one of these two or come up with my own, and regardless, it's going to be a crappy experience both ways.
Yeah, Apple is with this new design language, They're trying to create more coherence between the different operating systems that they control. Yeah, I mean, they've said that multiple times, I think, throughout the videos. And by doing this, they're also providing, and I watched some of the videos before this, like one on app icons, and I kind of disagree that the icons look better than some of the ones they're replacing that looked much more realistic and all, but I could see why they're doing it because it gives you visual coherence and it gives you a simplified design language you can apply in all kinds of scaling with all kinds of color tinting going on like you can on the Springboard, home screen, in dark mode and light mode and different lighting environments on Vision OS in like real world environments, all that stuff. This is a design language, and it's more than a design language, as you said. It's like this computationally intensive, I don't even know. They said it's like it operates in its own environment, the things that get the liquid glass. But this material, this virtual material they created allows them to, and they say primarily use it for controls, right? So like it allows them to use like the UI controls and stuff that have to be there, but both be somewhat unobtrusive and also still visible and still merge with whatever your application, they call it content, but whatever like your app is displaying. So I mean, it's trying to balance a lot of different criteria, which I was actually very impressed. I'm not 100% sold on it when I look at it just on the screen snapshots, but I looked at it very briefly today on a device, and I was like, okay, I could see how it looks a lot better when you see it in motion, as it were, on a real screen.
Yeah, and it's like this was the worst it'll ever be.
Exactly, that's what my other thought. I remember iOS 7 looks like terrible with a super thin font and everything. We couldn't read it, and then they quickly changed it by the middle of the beta.
Yeah. So there's that. So I think, but I mean, the real star in my mind was the iPad OS starting to look more like macOS. Yeah, I kept waiting for them to like add this one more thing. Oh, one more thing. Instead of iPad OS, it's just macOS. Like everything.
Yeah, right.
This whole side is macOS, but they didn't do that. So
yeah, so that was I don't know. It was called a surprise. It was that was one of the moments where Apple had a sense of humor about it when they displayed it, and they're like, "Oh, Windows with you can move around wherever you want." Whoever thought of doing that? Like they clowned themselves a little bit on themselves.
Look at this. There's a menu bar. Wow,
a menu bar. Whoever thought of that?
I was like,
okay. Like I had like two kind of thoughts about this, I guess. Number one, they're finally answering what people were clamoring for. A lot of developers, a lot of power users, I say, not just developers, have been asking for, begging for, like, just give us like macOS Windows. And Apple's like, no, that doesn't work on an iPad. Here's this version of multitasking. And then everyone's like, that sucks. And they're like, here's a new version of multitasking. And everyone's like, that sucks. And now they're just like, here's what macOS basically does. It's almost the same thing. We just, and just adapt it for iPad. And hopefully you can stop being, crybabies about it or something, But on the other hand, the other thing I think it's funny is that the fundamental user interaction paradigm of macOS that predominantly dates back to the beginning with like a menu bar at the top, free-floating windows, and yes, there's been a lot of evolution over the years, but that essentially has remained fundamentally unchanged. The same thing on like Windows, even on Linux desktops. I mean, it's most windowing user interfaces are overlapping windows of some sort and menus, and they're just acknowledging, I think, that that's actually a really good paradigm for power users. I think on a two-dimensional display anyway.
The interesting thing is, well, on the beta, it's defaulted to windowing. If you go into settings and then if you go into multitask and gesture, I believe, they do have 3 configurations. Full screen, the window app mode, which is what we saw, and then the stage manager mode. Yeah.
Yeah,
stage manager. You can pick between these 3 fundamental settings, and so you can have it the old way, the window way, and then the stage. So basically, it's just adding another way to do the same thing.
Yeah, so they're not going to remove the old ones yet.
Not yet.
If ever.
Yeah,
but,
because
macOS has all 3 of those modes.
Yeah, it does, right. I forgot that it has Stage Manager because I've never used it.
It's actually not
I used
too
it for
bad.
Like 5 minutes.
I don't even know how to activate it.
You gave it a good week's try. I saw you. You gave it a solid week.
Yeah,
I might try it.
And I commend you on that because I was like, I'm not going to give it this one.
I might try Stage. I might try that on when I'm just using my laptop screen because I feel like it's better suited for that single screen, a smaller screen thing. But I don't even know how to activate it, honestly. Like,
it's in system settings under mission control or something like that.
Yeah, you can just turn it on, and then I don't know how. Yeah, and then
but
just.
It is funny though. They even put the 3 little colored buttons in the left corner for like window resizing and stuff on iPad. And they just gonna make macOS eventually on the iPad? I don't think so. I think I don't know how much macOS and iPadOS share internals. I don't think it's I don't know if it's necessarily enough that they could just swap like merge them. But it does feel like they're really merging. I
think somebody in our Slack was joking. It's like it's not a real Mac until it has a terminal.
Right, yeah. They did update terminal on macOS, so I'm excited to try that out, see if it's any good now.
All right, yeah. So when are you gonna install the Mac beta? Because I feel like that's the last one I ever install.
I don't have another Silicon Mac. Maybe I should just buy like a $300 M1 from like 2020 and just like try that.
It's funny because like every year they have some pretty horrible excuse of why you need to install the latest version of the beta Mac.
Yeah.
Because it won't work with some feature in Xcode. Like some feature in Xcode won't work unless you install the latest beta. And I think the recent one, at least it feels like, is like you can't add any of your models, your special models into Xcode as a replacement for Swift Assist unless you like update the macOS. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Is that true?
I don't know. I haven't. I
don't know.
I'm still looking for it in Xcode. Like this version of Xcode literally looks the same as the other one. There's like little minor differences here and there.
I tried to click on release notes and it went to a 404, so I'm not sure what's supposed to be in it.
I saw that, but I joked with you before this meeting. It's like, oh, you're gonna really love the settings, the way they designed the settings.
Yeah, Xcode 26.
Because it looks exactly like the regular app setting now.
Okay, I kind of get why they're doing that, because if you have an unknown number of things that you have to put it in a list, making it a vertical list makes sense instead of things that are horizontally scrolling that could be, I understand why they did this. And it keeps things more similar across them, but it's still ugly and annoying and has never worked right, and maybe this is the year it does, I don't know, but I find it really annoying. I don't like the settings. I like the old settings because I got used to where they were spatially. Remember when we used to talk about spatial? They talk about it now only in Vision OS. Remember when we used to talk about like on a GUI where things were on the desktop mattered? Before everybody just had like snapping stuff and tiling things. It used to really matter where you put stuff. The whole point of a desktop metaphor was literal. Like you would put your documents, which were like papers, up on the left side or whatever, and on the right side you had something else, and you had a window right here, and it was like their relationship to each other in two-dimensional space mattered because you were setting up a workflow for yourself. But it's like, who cares anymore? It's a
yeah, that's only for Vision OS now.
It's only for Vision OS now.
I mean,
so now we just have everything
funny.
Just scrolling, horrible SwiftUI scrolling list.
It is sort of funny, like, out of all the design languages, they could say, okay, this is going to be our North Star. They were like, the Vision OS one is going to be the North Star.
Yeah, really? Because they probably started this effort like 2 years ago or something, right?
Yeah, that probably is true.
And they had to pick something, and they're like, the future is going to be spatial computing. Meanwhile, the whole rest of the industry is like, the future is just going to be putting random user-generated text strings into inscrutable models and then getting back other text strings that we then have to interpret. That's not a future. Everything's just going to be that. And Apple's like, we think everything's going to be bespoke user interfaces in three-dimensional space. And it's going to be a merging of the two things. But Apple was betting on spatial computing, and they might still be right, but their only device right now costs as much as a used car. So it's, in 2019, maybe 2018, 2019 used cars. Really, it costs as much as your used car would today, Kotaro. Your duct taped together Toyota. That Yaris, man, I'm jealous of that Yaris. It's like the engine will outlive us all.
This Yaris has seen some things,
dude,
let me tell you.
That's going on a tangent, but your Yaris is like, the engine on that thing will outlive any electric car like ever manufactured. It'll outlive most people. I think it'll still be able to run like 100 years from now. It's crazy.
It'll just run on pure fumes, but it'll still run. Damn it!
like Toyota engineering, man.
Yeah.
So we were talking about Xcode.
The frame is absolute trash, but the internals are phenomenal.
Engine's fine.
The engine's fine.
So Xcode 26, not much to talk about Xcode 26 until we figure out how to get the cursor integration working. It's
is there anything that you find, well, Xcode aside, is there any particular frameworks? And to be fair, like we just got dumped a lot of the videos now.
Yeah. I don't know if it's all of them or just like one day's worth, but we'll find out tomorrow, I guess. But the frameworks, foundation models framework, I think is the most exciting thing, right, Aaron? For you too?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I watched
I
watched a video about it. I watched the Meet the Foundations framework. I'll bring it up.
So what did they exactly say? Because this framework is basically, you're pointing at their local model, right? Or their local models? Is that how this is?
Yeah, they have a foundation model
Mm-hmm.
that you can use in different ways. And it has some cool features in here. They talk about, like in the summary, they talk about guided generation, which apparently there's a deep dive video which I want to watch about how this works. But they have something they call guided generation. So one thing I thought was interesting about it is that they can guarantee that you'll get back the appropriate like Swift structures, I think, like that you want, that you're telling it to give you back. So you don't have to worry about trying to kind of get the stochastic parrot to give you JSON or something that's consistent and then have to clean it up. You know how we've heard this from people who've worked with these models before. You know, you'll get back stuff and just not always reliably, and then you have to have some way of dealing with that. They're saying they can guarantee that with this. I don't know how, but they have something called guided generation. They also have snapshot streaming, so you get back snapshots. So if you're, say, put in a text as like generate a title for this podcast, whatever, and as it's coming back, it'll give you like the first word, and then the next snapshot might be the two of the words, etc. Instead of giving you like token, I don't know whatever boundaries you would normally get you back, like some token boundary. Like maybe you'll only get back like a word and then part of a word or something. You know what I mean? Okay. They're giving this whole, like the whole string basically, and like here's a snapshot, and the way they have it set up is they use their macro. This is part of that generative macro stuff, so it'll create the same properties. I'm trying to remember from watches, but they'll be all optional. So you'll be able to use these, I guess, these optional. There's a special like structure, but you're able to use it to update, I guess, your UI as you're getting stuff back reliably. Tool calling is in there too, which is cool. Which is a thing common among a lot of these models, obviously nowadays. But to have it on a local model is pretty cool, and so you can have it supposedly, I don't know how reliably, but supposedly pretty reliably do tool calling, so you can have your own.
For us foolish people, what is tool calling?
So it's in this case you write, there's a protocol for it, but their canonical example they said is even the hello world of tool calling now is a like get weather thing. So if you have a method, you have a function or something, you have like a program to get the weather, right? You can tell the model at initialization by playing this protocol, like here's the tool for getting the weather. When someone's asking for the weather, it will figure out that that's the tool it should use, and then it will call out to that tool, and then the data will come back in.
So it's kind of like normally, like with a LLM, you can't expect it to do even semi-complex math, but you can have it tool call
that's why,
the actual product to do that.
Yeah, it'll call a calculator, or it'll call the weather API, or it'll call your custom method to do whatever. And that's really neat because this is what we were talking about when we talked about the universal UI. I mean, this plus the fact that they put it into Spotlight, so now you can Spotlight everywhere. Can like look at can like you can have these snippets or whatever. They think they were called snippets, right? That you can have apps can expose, like on macOS. You can expose different functionality and then access it through Spotlight. Well, this is like some similar thing here where you can now use the foundation model in your app to have it do things like do tool calling. So you can have it have the more of a natural language interface to things, or in their example, they were generating itineraries, I guess was one of the things they were doing, and I think it was calling a couple tools in there.
Do you feel like Spotlight is a low-key, like they snuck in something there under the guise of, oh, it's just this cool tool you can use, but like it's probably one of their very important interfaces going forward?
Yeah, I think you're right. I saw the Spotlight stuff just kind of popping up here and there, and they talked about it a little bit, and I was like, that's low key awesome, because at least on macOS, because if I understood it right, it was Spotlight's the universal UI we were talking about, like whatever app you're in, you could just pull it up, right? And then it can give you the built-in user interface to query for whatever you want the app that you're looking at to do. That's why I read what they were trying to accomplish.
Yeah, as long as your app is like has an intent with like a
obviously,
snippet and all that stuff.
You have to implement something for it, but instead of having like right now when you have apps that have these text interfaces, the app developer has to implement it inside the app. Each one's a little bit different, and obviously that could make sense depending on use case. But in this case, when we were talking about universal UI and how other people have talked about similar concepts, they're like, canonical example comes up with something like Photoshop. You're in Photoshop and you're like, there's a gazillion tools in there. You're not an expert. How do I, create a gradient? It's like, I don't know, when you can just bring up Spotlight and be like gradient background or something. I don't know. And it'll figure out how to do it. Like, that's what I'm hoping it works like. And that means that Photoshop or Adobe wouldn't have to implement a special user interface for it, I guess. They could implement that stuff as little snippets in the operating system. Plus, that means, couldn't you theoretically then call these things maybe? I don't know how it works if they're like app intense, but could you call them from somewhere else potentially or in the future? I don't know. But it gives me the hope that whole, the stuff that the Skyd app that was, I don't even know if it's out yet, was announced, that like Apple will actually be able to do that as well, where you can just kind of query for things and have it call the right apps and to do stuff.
Right.
I mean, some of this has to wait for the Dingus upgrade to be fully integrated, like to be like coherent.
Is it me or there's like nothing around Dingus this entire?
No, that was no Dingus.
There was no Dingus, right?
Because that's the thing that was promised and not delivered the most last year. They're like, they said we're working on more stuff, and then they moved on. They said we're pushing that back. We're moved on. I think that I see the foundations of that though. I see like these are the app intents, snippets, whatever, the foundation models framework. I see a lot of this stuff as probably parts of that overarching project that are now exposed to developers, and that if next year it finally comes out, it'll all gel together, and the next WWDC is going to be like all Dingus based or something.
Was there anything else, Aaron, that you were excited about or you thought was interesting, at least from AI or
the foundation
ML
thing
the foundation thing was one thing. Is that was the only major thing?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any of the other things.
Oh, was it the vision framework or the visual
intelligence?
Is that the visual intelligence? Vision intelligence or visual intelligence?
Let's search the developer app.
Because I should type intelligence and see what comes up, but we're doing this live, people. Nope.
I don't see it. I
don't see it. I don't see anything either. Maybe we misspelled intelligence. But anyway.
What were you saying, though, Aaron, about it?
Like,
they were talking with, like, whatever the thing is where you can, like, look up an image. Like, I'll look at the screen of, like, your app and say, like, all right, what's going on in this image?
Right.
And then it was like, if you configure your app intent correctly, then it can deep link into your app from wherever it is that they like screenshotted that thing.
Right. No matter where it was that they screenshotted it, they can then deep link it back to you.
There's some kind of thing of like you can customize the thing of this type of image will trigger a deep link into your app, but it was just a quick thing in the State of the Union. I don't know if there's like a full session on it later, but I haven't seen it yet.
The one that's actually kind of interesting, the call was it the call translate API? That one I want to play with because that would be kind of interesting to test out mechanically. I don't know if that's in there as well.
Some people that speak other languages to give them a call to give it a try.
Yeah. Automate.
The translation stuff is cool. We'll see how well it works compared to like the Google stuff, which I think does a cloud. This is on device, right? And is the Google stuff on device?
I think all the translation stuff said it used their on device models.
Yeah.
We'll see how well that works, but like on the phone, it even did voice because at first I was like, "Oh, it's neat." it's giving you a text-based translation, but then they're like, oh, but then it's going to do a voice when you're doing a phone call. I mean, it's not real time. There's a bit of a delay, but that it works at all will be amazing to me. Like that's like literally the universal translator
going to the cloud.
Yeah,
it should still be faster than going to a cloud service.
I mean, maybe.
Voice.
I would say, well, maybe for voice, but I don't know, because it kind of depends, because I don't know, I haven't tried the Google stuff, but some of those cloud LLMs are actually really fast, like Gemini 2.5 Flash is like really fast sometimes to get back your first tokens, and so it wouldn't still be real time, I guess, but it'd be pretty fast.
Right, but to get back voice is like
voice, I don't know.
It's a little bit more, transfer a bit more data than just
unless you have like an on-device voice model that can just take the text in real quick.
So like a speech-to-text or text-to-speech.
Because, I mean, it doesn't sound like a supernatural voice, which I think is good. I don't think I want generated voices to be too realistic. I want them to be obviously generated, just so that there's no confusion. But
I mean,
that's
just an app idea in general would be to figure out. I mean, it would be kind of hard to do, but it'd be kind of funny if you could figure out an easy way to say, hey, I recognize how this voice's, the voice's tone, and then adjust the speech to actually try to mimic the actual voice of the person speaking, so if the person's speaking Spanish in my tone, then they can translate to English in the same tone.
I believe, isn't that how, there's something that basically does that, isn't there? Was that from Google, or is there someone else? Was it Google that did that? I didn't really pay a huge amount of attention to I.O. recently, but I thought there was something where they were basically doing that. They were like doing I saw it somewhere where it was like doing your voice. Maybe it was one of the other companies. I don't know. It's something I've seen before where you can have it, it'll do translation. I don't know if it was real time, but then it'll be in your voice, which is crazy. And you could even change like the mouth movements.
Do you feel like there's any, at least on the surface level, as a developer, what should I feel excited about?
I mean, I think...
I would feel excited about, but...
The new design language and stuff is obvious. I think that actually has more of an immediate impact from the developer perspective, because I do think most normies don't care so much about a lot of this other stuff. But then from a developer perspective, as in adding features, I think the Foundation Models framework is the most exciting thing, because theoretically, anyway, Apple could update that framework outside of iOS updates and then give it more capabilities as the hardware improves. Mm-hmm. As there's more neural engine capacity, more RAM, more storage on these devices, if they ever do that, if they upgrade them again. But theoretically, they can make this better. And with it, you have what they said was a 3 billion parameter model that's tuned for the type of stuff you're probably going to want to do on device anyway. I mean, that opens a door for you to do a lot of privacy-focused, hopefully faster than going out to the cloud thing, obviously cheaper because it's free, types of LM model type features. Well, we're going to see how well it works. It's obviously not going to be as good as these foundation models you get from OpenAI online or Google, whatever. But for a lot of things, it may be perfect. Maybe a perfect match. I'm going to play around with it for something, and so we're going to see. I think that's the most exciting thing that came out of this, is just the fact they're doing that, and then the Xcode tooling. I feel like it's probably not going to work as well as their competitors. But it's nice that they're adding that in there. I didn't know they were going to announce that. I thought they were going to. The rumor was that they were testing that internally, but hadn't decided whether to release it. But they're obviously going to release it. So, but I think it's obviously that the models framework is the biggest thing, so you can build real features off of that. The design language is nice, but it doesn't give you new features. It just gives you a new user interface. It's not really big on features, but
What were you saying?
I was going to ask you what you thought of all the new game development tools. Is the Mac game going to finally happen?
I mean, nothing here is... I mean, it's nice, evolution of the stuff, improved Metal... No, so Metal 4, I think, is what's out now. Is coming out, and then...
Yeah, 4.
a lot of stuff that is not something at the moment I particularly care about, although it'll have a trickle-down effect to the game engines. Like,
how many years in a row they've been showing off that walking simulator game? Don't you want that game finally to run at smooth as silk frame rates?
This time they showed off Cyberpunk.
They did. They did Cyberpunk, yeah. I love it. We finally, Cyberpunk, we got it to run at a decent frame rate now.
I mean, I am curious how that's going to run on my M1 Pro, but
compared to the Switch 2 version.
Mentioned like an M4 Max or something like that.
Yeah, they did mention an M4 Max in order to get some of the features.
I think your M1 is not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to
my M1 Max
work.
is finally feeling its age.
Yeah, I'll just have to go and get that Switch 2. But I mean, I think it's kind of interesting that they decided to separate out the game category. Even at least in the beta, it hasn't completely changed the App Store layout. So you still have App Store with the 4 tab bars with the game in front of the apps tabs.
Okay.
And then Arcade as the last one.
What's this app, the separate app they created?
They created a games app, and judging from what I'm looking at right now, it looks very much like the App Store. The only difference is that you have a home page that is just a generic welcome to the App Store. Here are all the games that you can continue playing. And then it has like different bento box style stuff where what your friends are playing, so it knows all the apps or games that your friends are playing, and then it's just recommending app arcade games, and then down below it's recommending all the other apps that are on the App Store. Then there's the Apple Arcade, which is like its own tab, but at least it's at a higher level. And then there's like Play Together, which is just a grid of just like games that other people are playing. And then your library, which is just your games that you have, and that's pretty much it. Like, when I compare this to the current App Store in the beta, which I don't think they're going to change until like closer to like release, it's still the same the Today tab, games, apps, and then the Apple Arcade, and then a search.
You think icon. They would remove games from the App Store app?
I'm just trying to think of like what are they going to replace it with. Like now you have, although it kind of makes some sense in a bizarre way, right? Because like if you replace games, that shrinks the items to pick to Today, apps, and you probably have to get arcade as well. So now you have two items.
It wasn't clear to me that they're removing that stuff or just duplicating it, kind of.
That's the thing. Like, this doesn't make sense unless they decide we're moving the games in the arcade into its own little app.
Although games, aren't they like the biggest thing that sells on the App Store?
They are.
I wonder what the revenue split on that is.
It's like in terms of the downloads, like what gets the most downloads or what are the most things that are actively used, like games like outpaces all of them.
Is the idea by doing this to try to create something kind of like Steam in a way? Because like trying to train user base to go to a completely different app to buy games would seem like a disastrous idea, because everybody's used to just going to the App Store app literally for however many years it's existed, more than almost 20 or something now, approaching.
Yes, I don't know unless this is more like a version of the EU where maybe they're trying to separate these components out a little easier, so that when
I think that's it. It's like
if they have to like say, okay, now we're gonna let other apps, other game stores,
game store,
right?
And you can switch the default to to Epic or whatever the other.
That probably makes the most sense.
Makes sense. That makes more sense to me than anything else I think of, because unless they're gonna, I don't know. Yeah, I mean they did say that it had some kind of the arcade thing was in there, and you could, I don't know, switch between the games. It was unclear to me. Do you launch the games from it and they work inside that app, or you have to still download them as separate apps? It's not unclear to me what they meant in some of that presentation. I was maybe distracted at the moment.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I don't find that to be that essential, or it doesn't strike me as like a very important of an announcement. But that might be because A, the EU stuff, but then B, maybe down the line there is an intention to be, because I know like they've just bought the Sasquatch team of 2, right? Which is
what is that?
Developers that they made an Apple Arcade called it was like a Sasquatch game. I forgot the exact name of the.
Okay, I was like, what?
Yeah, Sneaky Sasquatch, which is just this fun little
So they got the team.
So they got the team of 2, right? And I was like, that's weird that they're just.
Are they gonna make
by
games?
that team?
Like their own first party games with 2 people?
That's the part that I'm unclear about, because it's just kind of like one of the most random ideas of just buying that particular team versus like maybe buying like a whole studio or building a whole studio, right?
Maybe they're cobbling together a studio with people internally and externally. Who knows?
Yeah. And that kind of would make sense, especially if you're trying to like figure out how do I build similar to like the PS game studio, right? Where I think they are like, we have our own exclusive games where you have your Horizon Zero Dawns and your Last of Us and all that stuff, right? That you can only get on the PlayStation, at least exclusive for like 6 months to a year or something, right? That's why you get those consoles. There's nothing like the Apple Arcade's fine, but it's very casual. Like the games there you might play, maybe like you might give to your kids, or you might play like once and you're like, oh, that's cute, and then move on. Like the only game that I think I spent like significant amount of time, the only 2 games are like Balatro and like Vampire Survivor. All the other ones, maybe like I can see like NBA 2K25, because that is like a very nice distilled version of the NBA 2K games where you don't have to deal with the silly microtransactions. But they probably paid quite a penny for those, and it'd probably be better if they just start their own studio. It might eventually be more economical to just do it that way.
They did update Game Center,
but I don't.
They have controllers in Vision OS now.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That's actually a big deal too.
For the 3 people who have those.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the thing is like
having the 3D controller, that was one of the big missing pieces. We talked about it when the Vision Pro first came out, that it didn't have the fidelity of control with your hands, right, compared to the controllers on the Meta side for games.
One of the things they did have like a demo of like a Logitech pen that you can
I saw that. That
like,
was cool.
Draw like a stylus that you can draw in the 3D space. I thought that was interesting.
You can't just use your finger for everything?
It's
not accurate enough.
Not. It's not. Well, you have to do it in a pinch gesture. So normally when you draw, you pinch and then drag.
Yeah.
And that, like over time, that gets really painful to deal with.
Yeah. No, I think this is Apple acknowledging the weakness. I don't know if they're weaknesses or just not yet implemented things in their Vision OS vision, where their competitors did have a stronger story there. You know, if you don't have hardware accessories for your VR, AR experience, it is harder. And I don't know if Apple wasn't trying to avoid doing that, or they just didn't do it at first because they wanted the best possible the device, accessory-free experience. Probably a little both. And now they're like, okay, we're going to bring in the best things that people said that, our competitors maybe do better. Like, you want gaming to be better, you need to have controllers. We know this. Gaming has been around for as long as computers have been around, and part of the evolution of gaming has always been controllers. That's why Nintendo is, famous. The famous innovator, Nintendo is famous for the controller innovations more than anything else, and the game plans. But like the controllers are the headline things. So it makes sense for Apple to, if they're taking gaming seriously, to add in the controllers, and then in VR, AR in general, I think even for specialized applications, having like the pen is actually a good idea. That was only one example, but I could see them bringing in other accessories in the future from third parties for specialized tasks.
I think I will be interested there. They said they've decreased the latency of the hand gesture detection.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to test that out.
Without changing the hardware.
But we're going to test that out either this week or next week, Aaron. That's for sure.
How many Hadoukens can you do per minute? That's going to be your metric.
You get tired.
You get tired.
Yeah, I'll do a video demo of that with because basically you can say, okay, we're going to see the skeleton linked, the 3D skeleton mapped to my hands, and then we can kind of see in real time how well it actually follows.
How accurately can you perform like a Doctor Strange hand magic spell and have it activate.
You mean the spinning?
They do. Don't they? The magic system has different hand gestures.
Yeah,
find a magic system that has defined hands, maybe Naruto or something for the jutsus, whatever, and see if you could activate. This would be a fun little test.
You know how complicated that is?
Exactly. If the Vision Pro can do Naruto magic system,
oh my goodness,
jutsu system, whatever, then you'll know that it's really made improvement.
Kids are gonna do the Naruto run up against the wall because that and break
because they have nothing protecting their faces because their hands are behind them.
Exactly. So
I never understood that. Is that actually an efficient way to run?
No, it's
goofy.
It's anime goofiness.
Okay, I thought it was like I was like, why do they run like that?
You know what it is? It's an easy animation trick, so you don't actually have to animate the arms.
Yeah. Well, now that I've watched a significant amount of anime in my life, and I just see them all the time. There's like tricks now, and like, oh, this show is cheap because they didn't animate like 5 minutes of this episode. It's just still frames with something kind of maybe jerking a little bit back and forth, the voiceover.
If you've looked at a lot of manga, you realize that it's usually a lot of talking with headshots and midshots and like
manga too,
talking to each other, and then like you have like one frame that is like the huge splash screen of like action, and you're like, oh my goodness, this manga is goated, and it's like, okay, that just calm down there.
Well, I mean, you gotta. Everybody has a budget. But game development stuff you are somewhat excited about, though, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything here that really is going to speak to me per se. One of the things that I might have been interested in, and maybe the videos will pan that out, is like, okay, is there integrations with other game engines that this will allow? And I think it will, but is there other things in this that's going to improve the fidelity or the ease of use? Or like if I wanted to get this integrated in Godot somehow, I would be very interested in that.
I mean, Godot already announced they have Vision OS support.
Yes.
So
yes.
See how some of these new features work.
Oh, that's true. 4.5 should have it. And then the Miguel guy, the man who was responsible for the Mono framework, has a template, like a Swift Godot template that actually you can embed a Godot thing in there. So maybe we can like play around with both of them and see how well they pan out. But yeah, again, nothing too as far as I know at the moment, nothing too exciting from the gaming point of view. I think we'll probably be up in our ears with either this foundation model thing and Intense and Liquid Glass.
Yeah,
those are the key ones.
That just glass modifier everything.
Yes.
Well, they
or
say,
wrap that in the glass view or something, right?
Yeah, but they said not to make your content.
So somebody's going to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, because it competes with it. It's meant for this, according to Apple anyway. It's meant for the buttons and things, not for your content.
It's just going to happen. People
it's going to be like iOS 7 all over again. I mean, we're all guilty of it then. But we're seasoned developers.
I mean, so what's interesting here...
We don't need to go to be like
just
that.
To sort of wrap things up, I tested this on our BentoFit app. And I showed you
on iOS 26?
On iOS 26. And
yeah, you said it crashed.
It crashed initially because apparently we probably don't set a condition about HealthKit.
Oh, our HealthKit integration. I completely need to fix it. I haven't gotten to it because of dub prep and stuff.
It's totally fine on second launch, but it does crash on first launch. Not a big deal. Don't worry about it. Beta software.
You did get it to run. Nice.
And yeah, so that you saw the screenshots, and one of the things it immediately does is like if you have a nav bar, you have nav bar items, it will wrap them in a capsule with a glint on the edges. And so if you have a opaque background or a color background of some kind, it will completely convert it into that background, and then so it'll do things that are unintended, and so you have to decide, because now you're fighting like our metaphor, which is like the bento box metaphor, but it's also like this like very like flat kind of like container. is competing against the glass now. So now I have to like rethink this like, okay, well, how do I integrate a glass metaphor on top of our our bento box ceramic tile?
It's a nice glass bento box, glass.
It's got a
polycarbonate glass lid. Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I don't know. At least it runs.
Yes, it does run. It runs fine.
Before we finally wrap up, let's end things on a positive note. Let's name some of the things that got Sherlocked this year, because there seemed to be a lot. There seemed to be a lot of things that got Sherlocked sort of this year. What was Text Expander? Maybe because they were talking about like a keyboard shortcut or something. I don't know if that
I don't think letters or something, and then in Spotlight, and you get a
Spotlight basically Sherlocked an entire category of utility app this year.
Yes.
The wallet app seems to have Sherlocked the shop app and maybe Flighty. Is that where they saw the flight plan thing?
I
don't know.
The Arc browsers.
Activities for flights.
Live activities for flights is coming from email, right? So it's like that's also a bunch of possible email apps. But I think, so we got Flight and the shop app. If you never use that's basically exactly what the wallet integration is. I think.
I mean, there are
I'm
tons that we don't know. We're pretty sure offhand has been Sherlocked, but
what one?
Was it the Buddy one? The Buddy workout or the Buddy?
The workout Buddy feature that's that's for Apple Watch, right? That's Sherlocking essentially. Well, if it's at all like the apps I've used that are like trying to give you motivation when you're doing workouts, there's like a whole category of those apps, mostly in running is what I experienced of them. So maybe this Sherlocks them. And I noticed, the first thing I noticed that they got Sherlocked for sure, like hard, was day one, because they didn't say it on all of them, but they had the little picture of the journal app is on I think on all the major platforms now, which day one is as well, right? So it's like, I'm not now. This when we say Sherlocked, I'm not saying that these apps are like useless now and everybody's gonna switch off them. It's just funny that like Apple makes like a version of they do this every year. They make like their own version of things that have been popular in the community, and just this year, it just seemed like a whole bunch of stuff.
That looks nice, and they just take it.
Yeah, let me just take that feature. Let me just take that app.
That's a nice feature. We're gonna
it's
make
pretty
it a
funny.
new version. So yeah.
So everyone is Sherlocked this year, and I feel fine.
Yes, we're fine because our app has not been Sherlocked because it hasn't been released yet.
No, dude, they Sherlocked the other app I'm working on with Mike, my friend Mike.
Your haiku
I
app.
sent you the screenshot because so we're sitting there. We'll end on this little anecdote. We're sitting there today, right before this. Mike and I are watching one of these videos. And it might have been the one on the Foundations model. And I'm like talking to him and said, hey, you know what? This would be cool. Maybe we can use this instead of going out to OpenAI to do our little generation of text, haiku thing. And then they literally come up with a screen where they're generating haikus in code with the Foundations model. And I'm just like, I guess it works. We're going to test it tomorrow. I guess it works.
Indeed.
Thanks, Apple. Save me some time.
Save you some time.
Yeah, we'll see how well it works.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's all we have for today. You can learn about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And please share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. I'm going to give a shout out to our good friend, skybookapp.com. They, the people there who are actually at the event, Left Brain, Right Brain LLC. So,
what's it called?
Hope you're enjoying the StyleBook app.
StyleBook app, yes.
Right. So it is StyleBook is designed to help you carefully curate your wardrobe so you can look effortlessly chic every day. We want to get you the most out of what you already have in your closet and choose new pieces to integrate well with your wardrobe as a whole. So think of it like a kind of on your iPad, your clothing closet on your iPad that you can actually mix and match different clothes, different outfits together and create set pieces for your day and even schedule them. So also has a nice little breakdown of color formats of your clothes. They also have a StyleBook for men. if that's your vibe. So yeah, that's stylebook.app. StyleBookApp.com. I'm so sorry. I'm just horrible.
There you go. The link will be in the show notes.
Link in the show notes. Never. Good thing this is not sponsored because we would fail horribly. Again, StyleBookApp.com. Check them out. Till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We'll cheer for you always.
How many Hadoukens can you do per minute? That's going to be your metric.